I think that says 5 o'clock. So we'll call the regular meeting, Vicksville Council to order. All of this notice of the public wish and all that, do we read that? Do you read that at this meeting or not?
If it's on the agenda, you can just open all of the meetings set forth on the agenda and refer to the document.
Okay. So the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville and the City Council sitting as the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the Victorville Housing Trust. There is no one apparently here to comment on any of the items, and do you have any cards or any requests that have been sent in?
None at this time, Mayor.
None at this time. And at this time, the declaration of closed session items by the City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Cox. We have a closed session item tonight pursuant to Government Code 54956.8. It pertains to real property negotiations. The property concerned are 4 of the hangars listed on the agenda located at Southern California Logistics Airport. Negotiating parties are Mr. Metzler and the representative from Pacific Aerospace and Resource Technology, and we are to discuss price and terms of certain lease transactions. To the extent there's reportable action, we would report that either immediately at the conclusion of the closed session or at the commencement of the 7 o'clock meeting.
All right, and for the record, will recess into closed session and convene back at 7 p.m. for the regular meeting, for a regular session.
No, I told him
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'll go down and
heat every piece of the holes and everything. So
we will both go down, and then I'm going to give the information and
slide
then
it after watching the
going
past
to
meeting.
actually.
So he wants to provide good
Well, no,
information.
you can.
Marcy, I will be attending.
Oh, okay.
John Yoder, who's going to
Sure. Yeah. Monica may have sent it out,
They
but
gave me
I'll
the
make sure
cheat-
you get
the
it.
latest. They gave me the latest cheat sheet, so I'm in pretty good shape. It says 7 o'clock, according
Yeah,
to
he
my.
already checked it.
Oh, I have another one. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to the council meeting tonight. I'm going to call the meeting to order at this time. And Mr. City Attorney, announcements from the closed session.
Thank you, Mayor Cox. We had one closed session item pursuant to Government Code 54956.8, real property negotiations. The property at Southern California Logistics Airport is listed on the agenda, as were the negotiating parties, and at this point, there's no reportable action.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. The next item would be the invocation. I'd ask Pastor Ray Jim to come forward from Jubilee Community Church, and that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by our Victorville Police Chief, Don Yoder.
Heavenly Father, your word tells us to give thanks for those that are in authority over us and to pray for them, and we do that tonight. God, I thank you for this council that we have placed our trust in, and we ask you tonight just to give them wisdom into every order of business that is before them. Let your blessing rest upon this meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
pledge allegiance. God, indivisible, with liberty.
We have a presentation. I'm going to come down front in just 1 second, and I'm going to ask when I come down front that Mr. Corey Elder, are you here? You're here. I see, to come down front. I'm going to also ask Council Member Angela Valles to come down front, and we're going to have a presentation for you. So if you would come up, and we will come down and meet you. According to the little sign I'm on. Before Councilmember Wyas presents this recognition for an outstanding youth, I'd like to read this real quickly. Corey is 14 years old. For years, Corey has watched his father drop donations off at the High Desert Homeless Shelter. And this year, he decided he wanted to do something to help. So Corey took it upon himself to approach the Victorville Bowling Alley to see if he could hold a fundraiser. To his surprise, Corey ended up raising $400 for the High Desert Homeless Shelter. And Councilmember Vyas brought this to our attention and said, certainly, there's a justification here in these awards for this young man. I'm going to hand this to Angela.
I'd just like to say thank you, Corey, and we need more youth like you and adults. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And I hope there's more to come. Thank you. Here you go. Thank you.
City Clerk presents items.
We have one more introduction. That would be Captain Yoder introducing the new police captain.
Chief Don Yoder.
Well, as you may have heard, I've officially retired and be effective next week. So prior to introducing Sam Lucia, I just really want to thank you guys, members of the community, staff. I just truly appreciate, and again, have been blessed to be part of the city. Doug has treated me so well over the year and a half that I've been here. Thank you again for your support of the police department. Jim, when you were prior city manager, and Ryan, thank you so much for everything that you've done for us, along with Angela. And Jim's not here, but it was a difficult decision, but it's time to go. You know when it's your time, and it's just that time. So very fortunate to get Sam Lucia. I've known Sam for many years in the department. Give you some background on Sam. 39-year Victor Valley resident, currently resides in Victorville. Married for 22 years, has 4 children. Attended elementary school in Apple Valley, attended junior high school and high school in the Hesperia area. Graduated from Victor Valley, 23 years with the Sheriff's Department. Have served 3 different times with the Victorville Police Department, back in 91 to 97 as a deputy sheriff, 97 to 98 as a detective, and 2002, 2005 as a sergeant. So, further ado, my good friend, Sam Lucia.
Thank you, Don. Good luck to you over in Pasadena. I don't think it was a secret, was it? Thank you. You all need to know how honored I am regarding this appointment. And although past police chiefs and future police chiefs, after I come and go, will do 110% for the city. However, know that I have a personal stake in this community. I live here, I play here, I shop here, and I am just honored and glad to be back here working again. So thank you. Look forward to it.
Congratulations to Sam on your promotion. We all look forward to working with you. And Don, thank you for your service to the city. It is much appreciated. Thank you. Now, Madam City Clerk.
The City Council of the City of Victorville welcomes the public's participation in tonight's meeting. It is requested that all present please silence cell phones, pagers, and other electronic devices, and that personal conversations be kept to a minimum during the conduct of the meeting. Persons who wish to address the council on a specific item which appears on the agenda are requested to complete one of the white speaker cards that have been placed on the agenda table in the council chambers lobby and give it to the city clerk for the record prior to consideration of the item. The mayor will call upon each individual who has submitted a speaker card when the item comes up for discussion by the city council. The public comment period is the time and place for the general public to address the city council on any item within their jurisdiction that is not on the agenda. It is requested that a speaker card also be submitted to the city clerk for anyone who wishes to address the city council during the public comment period. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3, state law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker or less, as deemed necessary by the mayor, depending on the number of individuals desiring to speak. All communications are to be addressed directly to the city council. Individual comments to staff or members of the audience are not permitted. Individuals who fail to adhere to these guidelines may be asked to yield the floor. Any individual or group who engages in disruptive conduct during the meeting will be removed from the chambers by order of the mayor. Disruptive conduct includes, but is not limited to, addressing the council without being recognized, not addressing the subject before the council, repetitiously addressing the same subject, failing to relinquish the podium when requested to do so, verbal outbursts or comments from the audience. Thank you for your cooperation and adherence to these rules. All documents to be considered for approval at this meeting are before the council. Following are the revisions that have been submitted for tonight's agenda, and the city attorney will address those.
Thank you. Staff is requesting that we pull items 11 and 12, and while it says on the dais that we want to continue those, I would just assume we pull them and we will re-agendize those items for the next meeting.
Also for, excuse me, before I do this, that's a long-winded explanation that the city clerk goes through. We have to do that, but personally, thank you for coming here, and we hope that it's a learning experience. We hope that you enjoy it, and if you have any suggestions, let me know. I appreciate any input you have. Agenda item number 13, we're going to continue at this time. I'm going to speak to the staff about this. I had indicated earlier about the creation of a possible new committee. I will put that together and submit that to the city council within the next week, and we will agendize this when appropriate, and we'll try to move as quickly as we can. We are now at the area, at the section where we have public comments. I have at this time, bear with me please, 4 comment cards. I'll take them in the order that I have received them. And is there any additional individuals that want to address mayor and council? Please fill out a card, present it to the city clerk. The first individual, Mr. Curtis Green.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, staff. My name is Curtis Green, and I just wanted to introduce myself now as a field representative for our newly elected 1st District Supervisor, Robert Lovingood. We are excited about the city council that sits right now and their cooperation. We also are looking forward to working collaboratively with you all on all matters that we can get involved with. We realize that our main constituents are those who live in the unincorporated areas, but if the Victor Valley area is going to thrive like it will, all of us are going to have to work together. So we just wanted to introduce ourselves and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Green. The second card that I have is Yvonne Mashek. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Good evening. I'm here on behalf of the homeowners, and it's regarding the library. And I would like to ask you to consider moving the library to maybe the old Walmart building. The parking lot is so bad over there, and it's so dark. It's very dangerous for not only just for me, but for the people that even work there and volunteer. I'd like you to really consider moving it as quickly as possible. You know about the private road. And also, now the Hesperia Library won't even take our library cards over there if you want to drop off books. They say that it's a city library and they won't even take it, although they take library cards and books from as far as Chino, Barstow. So something's going on, and I'd really like someone to contact me about it or really consider it.
We will consider your remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
will take that very seriously, and we will look into it. Thank you. The next individual I have is Vicki Mack.
Mayor, council, and staff. My name is Vicki Mack, and I'm the Executive Director for Sterling Solutions, a nonprofit organization for pedestrian and bicycle safety. I'm also the chairperson and community liaison for Victorville Safe Routes to School. There was a Daily Press article published a couple of weeks ago about pedestrian accidents in the Victor Valley. And unfortunately, even though it got it right in saying that 2012 was a deadly year for pedestrians, they got it wrong with the numbers. The article quoted just 5 fatalities. In fact, there were 13 pedestrian and bicycle fatalities, with 8 of those fatalities here in the city of Victorville. Over a 5-year period, the Victor Valley has averaged 2.91 fatalities per 100,000. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but to kind of put it in perspective, Orlando, Kissimmee, Florida, where Disney World is located, was named the most dangerous city in the United States for pedestrians, and their rate was only 3.0. Okay, so we are almost running neck and neck with a place that is 1/30th the size and only 1/30th the size and has 6 times the population. The roads here are designed to move traffic, and they're not really designed with pedestrians in mind. And, you know, I kind of wonder at this point, you know, why isn't this more of a priority? Pedestrian accidents might be seen as affecting only a small and important segment of the population, but this is hardly the case. Budget cuts for school districts to reduce or eliminate bus service. The economy is compelling families to cut costs, and they walk for trips whereas they, you know, used to drive. 13% of the desert's population is comprised of seniors, many of whom may be unable or unwilling to drive. And a Kaiser study found that 72% of high desert residents are considered obese or overweight. But it's irresponsible to encourage more outdoor activities if the risks to pedestrians and bicyclists is not addressed. 1 in 5 California traffic accidents is pedestrian related, and just one serious injury costs taxpayers between $300,000 and $5 million to treat. If just a small portion of that money was spent on prevention, it could save taxpayers tens and even hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Now, we understand the reality of budget constraints, but this is not a case of blighted landscapes or outdated equipment.
15 seconds.
Children are being crippled, lives are being lost. You don't just say, well, there's no money, there's nothing we can do. No more than you'd say, well, I lost my job, I guess I'll go crawl behind a dumpster and die. We have to find a way. Safe Routes to School is doing, the county has got some Safe Routes to School money coming, but the majority of people that were in these accidents were not children. So I asked the city to please consider a community-wide pedestrian and bicycle safety campaign for the adults. Thank you.
Thank you. Hakeem Majid.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. My name is Hakeem Majid Sr., and first and foremost, I'd like to thank Captain Yoder and tell him that he's awesome, and I'm sorry to see him go, but good luck to you in all your endeavors. And I'd like to thank Councilmember Valles for the opportunity to serve the Recreation, not Recreation, but Community Services Advisory Committee. I'm looking forward to having a aggressive recreation program for our youth and really getting involved. I think that's the key, is getting involved. But my son, Hakeem Jr., has something that he wants to say.
I think that we should have like more security through our schools because we have to go through a lot of stuff, and my school got broken into, and
Tell me the name of your school, son.
Brentwood, my school, Brentwood Elementary, where the park is there. Yeah, so it broke. Some people broke in, and instead of playing where like what kids' favorite places are, they were stuck near the basketball courts. They couldn't go see their favorite places because they need the evidence to find it. And oh yeah, and I think you guys did like some work on the library, but I think you should do a little bit more on the streets and stuff. Have a good day.
You want to say something, Princess? This is my daughter, Aliyah, real quick.
The building that was next to the library, it's burnt, and could you guys fix it?
Thank you. Come on.
Thank you. I don't know why my screen went blank. I guess I cut the speakers off and just touch it, huh? Touch screen.
Mm-hmm.
You had an opportunity to just keep going. I wouldn't have known. We have, the next item is the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistic Rail Authority, Southern California Logistic Airport Authority, successor agency to the RDA, Joint Powers Financing Authority. There are no items, so we will move then to the Victorville Water District. Number 4 is a consent calendar.
Motion by Councilmember Valles, second by Councilmember McEachron.
Well, I'd vote, but what do I vote here?
Motion carries with Councilmember Kennedy absent.
Item number 5, City Council Resolution 13-001, Victorville Housing Trust.
Motion by Councilmember Valles, second by Councilmember McEachron. Motion carries with Councilmember Kennedy absent.
Item number 6, consent calendar for 6A, 6B, 6C.
Motion made by Councilmember Valles, second made by Mayor Pro Tem McEachron.
I didn't vote. There's
Oh, you
nothing on
didn't?
my screen.
Yeah, we're still stuck on the previous item.
Are we? Okay, that was number 5. Having trouble here, okay. Now, IT's helping me out here, so they're going through here, so, okay. Now I'm back on. Motion. Okay, now we can have a motion on the consent calendar.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
We're on the consent calendar now, item number 6.
Okay.
Okay,
Does show
so
item
now we
number
need,
5.
Shows item number 5.
still on 5, okay. Hi.
Oh, if you push on the bottom on the floor, it'll come up.
Item number 6.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, so have the motions been made?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that these are the ones. Okay. Motion made by Councilmember Vias, second made by Mayor Pro Tem McEachran. Hold on. Motion carries with Councilmember Kennedy absent.
The item on Councilmember Garcia's screen still showed item number 5 for some reason.
Go to the bottom, okay, on the floor.
Now it's on consent.
Wonderful world of electronics.
Are we good now? Okay.
If you push on the floor, it'll go to 7.
Item number 7. Are we prepared on item 7? Everyone there? Request to approve appointment of Mr. Majid Sr. to the Community Services Advisory Committee as recommended by Councilmember Vias.
Well, I don't have the motion button, but I'll move.
Okay, do you have it now? Okay.
If we don't have the motion button up, it still
Showing that you moved and I already seconded, but that's fine. I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it too.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Vias, second by Mayor Pro Tem McEachran. Motion carries with Councilmember Kennedy absent.
Looks like we're all caught up now. Let's hope.
Okay.
There we go. We're back in order, I think. Agenda item number 8. Item submitted by Mr. Keith Metzler, resolution authorizing and accepting the transfer of housing assets pursuant to Health and Safety Code Section 34176. If there are no questions.
Mr. Mayor, this item is companion to the item previously approved, item number 5, as the Victorville Housing Trust. This effectively in response to your responsibility to satisfy the dissolution bill of redevelopment in California. there is a process that also allows us to approve the reuse and the asset transfer of what was the housing assets, largely real estate properties that were acquired for housing purposes. This effectively cures a number of properties which have been enumerated and attached that were actually vested improperly but were bought and intended for housing purposes. So this effectively completes the authorization to transfer these assets into the housing, into the Victorville Housing Trust.
There's a motion and a second on the City Council Resolution number 13-001.
Motion by Councilmember Vyas, second by Mayor Pro Tem McEachron. Motion carries with Councilmember Kennedy absent.
Next item on the agenda is written communications and the subject matter is the potential use of city LTF funds for services provided by Victor Valley Transit Authority, and I understand there's a PowerPoint presentation to be made at this time. Evan?
Mayor Cox, council members, staff, thank you very much for this opportunity. As you can see, I was asked to come here to present a basic overview of the VVTA Comprehensive Operations Analysis changes and the future of LTF for the City of Victorville, unmet needs and the possibility of Sunday service, and the VVTA Compensation Survey. My wife wanted me to thank you all for inviting me to come here tonight because I was working on this over the weekend in my office and stayed out of her hair. So she wanted to thank you for that. I'll try to go through this very quickly, so if you have any questions, please keep them to yourself. Here's our presentation to the City Council. Angela Vyas is our board member, and I'm the Executive Director. A little background on VVTA. VVTA is a small administrative staff for an agency its size. We only have 9.5 FTEs, no planning department or dedicated staff, HR, procurement, no dedicated staff, civil rights, DBE, no PIO or marketing department or staff. Our finance and accounting department is one person taking care of a capital and operating budget of $16.5 million. Even so, VVTA has made many accomplishments over the most recent years. 2010, we were awarded Transit Agency of the Year by the California Association of Coordinated Transportation. The general manager was identified as the general manager of the year that same year by CALAC, first time that they've ever given the general manager and the agency to the same agency. We built a new state-of-the-art operations, maintenance, and administration facility, which we are in right now. We have built a CNG fueling station that fuels bus after bus after bus in 7 minutes each. And in 2012, the executive director received the Transit Leadership Award from the California Transit Association. And also in 2012, we received the MDA-QMD, the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District Exemplar Award for our new facility. So even with that small staff, we're accomplishing quite a bit. First of all, we'll start with the comprehensive operational analysis. The objective of the COA is to create the best transit network possible for VVTA customers within a restrained budget. The analysis helps maximize the impact of taxpayer funding for transit by gaining a better knowledge of our riders, improving efficiency, and directing transit investment where it's most needed. We were requested to talk about an overview of the COA, changes affecting LTF, and future funding impacts for the Fort Irwin or NTC commuter buses, and the future funding of the services that we call the BV Link, which I'll touch on very quickly. The COA is done in 3 phases. The first phase is the collection of data and analysis. The second phase is a presentation of the alternatives. It's important to know that in phase 1, each jurisdiction is visited, and the planning staff is spoken to find out what the local and regional development patterns and plans are for over the next 5 years, so those are incorporated into any changes that we look at. Phase 3 is basically the development of an action plan, preparation and presentation of that action plan. That action plan was presented to the Technical Advisory Committee. It was also last month presented to the VVTA Board of Directors in a COA workshop. The purpose of that was to collect input back from the board on the recommendations that the consultant presented. Following that, there'll be additional public input. There'll be a final draft and a presentation and hopefully approval by the board following implementation, which most of the changes will take place in the first year, but changes will take place years out for the next 5 years. Changes affecting LTF. Over the past 11 years, Victorville has received $14.9 million in LTF for streets and roads, from a low of $392,000, or 86% for transit, and only 14% going to streets and roads in 10-11, and that was when because the economy was in the tank, to a high of $2.2 million, or only 39% going to transit and 61% going to roads back in FY 07-08. After years of suggesting, when I first got here, the city of Victorville used city employees to run the buses that operated on the Victorville routes. We politely suggested considering using the VVTA contractor all those years, and in 2006 the city agreed and saved $650,000 that year, and that impacted the high number in FY 07-08 above, where you got the $2.2 million. It should be noted that in the good years, VVTA's jurisdictions would receive an additional spring disbursement for streets and roads, and this was done directly to the cities, and we have no record of it, so you certainly did receive probably more, definitely more than the $14.9 million, but that practice has since been discontinued by Sandbag. The changes affecting LTF, the COA is recommending we have 18 regional routes, and there are changes recommended for all of the routes, but only 5 of the routes are going to require additional resources or additional cost. Those are Route 21, which is up in the tri-communities, Route 32, which runs from Atlanto into Victorville. They share the route miles, and most of these are for on-time performance improvement or correcting late routes, and also because of overcrowding on routes. Route 41 runs from Apple Valley Post Office to Costco, and that's going to add 30-minute service to address overcrowding. Route 52 runs from Costco to the mall, and incidentally, we measure ridership in riders per revenue hour. Our riders per revenue hour on the 52 outnumber the number of seats on the bus, so that's how crowded that bus is. Route 53 runs from the mall to the college, and we're going to initiate 30-minute service a little bit earlier in the day. Those are the only changes that impact costs. This is a difficult slide to see. I've actually eliminated some of the columns, but the bottom line on this is a draft cost impact for the city of Victorville. I asked the consultant to work on, and that top box, yellow box of $224,883. That's the ongoing cost. That's the 3% increase for the contract. That's what's going to be your increase in LTF for next year, just based on the way business runs and the increases we pay to the contractor and the cost of doing business. That number is impacted or reduced by federal apportionments and also the fares paid by the riders. The second yellow box is the estimated cost to Victorville for the implementation of the changes of the COA. Again, that would be $530,493. That would be in next year and beyond next year's budget, not this year's. Future funding impacts, the NTC or the Fort Irwin commuter buses, funding is uncertain. VVTA started this service with 6 weeks' notice. We were asked by the Fort and by the City of Barstow and Sandbag to initiate this service. We did it with 6 weeks' notice. The Wednesday before we started the service, we bought buses from Omnitrans. We had been trying all along. We bought 5 buses that were between 12 and 15 years old that had over 800,000 miles on them. They delivered those buses to us on Friday. We worked on them all weekend, and we started the service that next Monday morning. So we were very proud to be able to do that. At the same time, Sandbag had promised us that they would find funding for 5 new buses. But as you can see from the slide, they decided to rescind its assurance of funds for the new buses and told us that we had to use our own funding, which would be a combination of LTF, CMAQ, and state assistance funds. I met with Robert Lovingood, and we talked a little bit about this, and he asked me to seek some middle ground. I did prepare a counteroffer to share the costs, but only if the VVTA board would approve it, and I don't believe that's likely because the NTC service isn't local service. the riders do live in Victorville, but it does go all the way out of our area. So here's what I prepared. This has not been presented to the VVTA board. There's no sense in presenting it to the board unless Sandbag shows that they're at least interested in participating. So of the $3.6 million required, I'm suggesting that we consider finding $1.6 million for the NTC buses by using future CMAQ funding that's already apportioned to us for replacement of our current rolling stock or buses, state transit assistance funds for the next 2 years, and a combination of and $275,000 in LTF to be shared by the jurisdictions. We would ask Sandbag to contribute $2 million. Just to let you know, staff is also in contact with Congressman Paul Cook to seek out additional alternatives. Everything's a little fuzzy on this right now, but I'm sure it will come together somehow, some way. With regard to the future funding impacts for the BV Link, the BV Link is a lifeline service that runs 3 days a week from Barstow to the Victor Valley. It brings people to medical appointments and things like that. It only, as I said, it only runs 3 days a week. That fund is funded with a CMAQ demonstration money. That funding will run out next fiscal year. We just recently initiated in October a continuation of that service all the way down into the San Bernardino area to visit the hospitals, Metrolink, and to connect with Omnitrans. It's been very successful, but the funding for that is due to expire in 14-15. So, you're looking at the impacts. The options include discontinuation of the service if it's voted for by the VVTA board, consideration of the ability to use what's called job access reverse commute funding to fund that service. It would have to go to 5 days a week if we were to look to do that. We could incorporate it into VVTA's suite of services that we currently operate, and that would require probably a subsidy of some LTF to cover the cost over the fares and the federal funding. I just wanted to note that VVTA's main funding apportionment is 5307. We get about $4 million a year right now. This will increase as a result of the increases in passenger miles and revenue hours from these routes because they are very long routes. We don't know exactly what that amount is because they change the formula every time they do it, but we do know that there will be an increase in 5307 based on these operations. Next, we wanted to talk about the unmet needs hearing and our Sunday service. Unmet needs are considered to be unmet needs that can be easily met. And unmet transit need are all essential requests by transit-dependent persons for which there is no other available means of transportation. And if they are reasonable, not easy to meet, I meant reasonable to meet, are those transit requests that can be met by all public and or special transportation services that can be proven operationally feasible, demonstrate community acceptance, serve a significant number of the population, proven to be economical, and can demonstrate cost effectiveness by having a fare ratio of at least 10% after 2 years of demonstration. Over the past 14 years, and probably well before that, I've been here 14 years, annual unmet needs hearings as required by TDA have included testimony requesting Sunday service. The reasons we get are to get to religious services. For the last 14 years, I have been telling people who say that your congregation needs to get you to your religious service. This is not a transit responsibility. My congregation gets people to our religious service. It's the responsibility of the congregation, not the responsibility of public transit. They say they want to go shopping. I suggest that shop 6 days a week. You don't need to shop on Sunday. We don't need to provide service on Sunday. They say we feel shut in on Sundays, and that's unfortunate. But for people who are shut in, I'm not sure we can justify Sunday service. However, the need to get to unemployment, or the need to get to employment, not unemployment, the need to get to employment is an active one, and I believe Sandbag has hung their hat on this one, and I really have to agree. The demographics of the VVTA rider is such that many have low minimum wage jobs, and their employment options are limited by the inability to get to fast food locations or other low-paying jobs for required Sunday shifts. And that's really what Sandbag is hanging its hat on. I was asked to tell you what other agencies are providing Sunday service. Omnitrans, Morongo Basin, out in 29 Palms area, up in Big Bear Mountain Area Transit, all provide Sunday service. Barstow just recently discontinued their Sunday service due to a lack of funds, and that's because all of their LTF funds were going to transit, and they were still running short on funds, so they cut Sunday service. Needles operates only one bus and doesn't have enough funding for Sunday service. Omnitrans, Martyr, Barstow, and Needles all spend approximately 100% on their LTF on transit. MBTA out in Morongo Basin spends 58% on transit for this year, and VVTA is spending 52% of its LTF funds on transit this year. Unmet needs hearing, Sunday service. Sandbag has informed VVTA that initiating Sunday service in the VVTA operations area will be a formal finding of the unmet needs. The COA consultant is currently developing a constrained initial Sunday service plan to test the true appetite for this service. VVTA will likely operate needed trunk or main routes, basically Main Street, east-west routes, Main Street, Bear Valley, Highway 18, and then the rest of the service will be a dial-a-ride service that will feed into those routes. It would be the most cost-effective way to do it. This service will have to run for 2 years per TDA. During that time, VVTA will make adjustments as needed, and the cost estimates are still being finalized. I really don't have those for you. Basic overview of the compensation study. In preparation for this presentation, staff reviewed the committee reports from the December 18th City Council meeting, and apparently, and I apologize, we didn't do a sufficient job in explaining certain matters to VVTA board members, and I really apologize. As a result of that, I'd like to present a few clarifications. The COA does, in fact, recommend 5 additional administrative positions. I think I showed in one of the earlier slides that we're very small. We have a very small staff, but this is not set in stone. It's for the VVTA board's consideration. No decisions have been requested yet of the VVTA board. The December meeting was only a COA workshop to solicit board input. There's no impact, and I saw that there was an awful lot of concern that this was going to impact this year's LTF. VVTA would never do anything unless the price of gas went to $8 a gallon, or the economy really tanked. We would never go after already budgeted LTF funds. We just don't work that way. Once an iteration of the final recommendations are approved by the board, implementation will begin in 2014, and the budget hasn't been set by any of us for that yet. So finally, there are no huge raises. Apparently, this is a reference to the compensation study, which I'll be getting into in a moment, but that was not part of the COA, and it was not discussed at this December board meeting or workshop. Basic overview of the staff compensation study was also requested. I was requested to do the PowerPoint presentation, but I was also asked earlier to kind of breeze through that. You can look at it, or I can get a copy to you if you'd like. Also information on what agencies were compared, and that's actually in the PowerPoint presentation, so let's go right to the PowerPoint. This was done by the public sector personnel consultants, which I understand you delayed or took off the agenda today, which was item 13, same one that you looked like you were going to authorize this for your compensation and class study. It was presented to the board in November. There are the project tasks. It was basically to look how VVTA pays their employees compared to other agencies of similar size and types of positions. 26 survey comparators were contacted. You can see a list here. It was a combination of agencies, cities, and transit agencies. Also, Private Sector Economic Research Institute was used to fill in the gaps. And not every, in fact, only some targeted comparators responded. One of note is Sunline, which I thought I had a good relationship with, and they didn't respond at all. We attempted to, on base pay, we attempted to survey each VVTA job, or we, when I say we, I mean the consultant. VVTA does not currently have any formal pay ranges. We're only 2 years old as a public agency, and we're still trying to get these things in place. So we don't even have pay ranges and things like that, but we're hoping to do that. Data collected from other employers typically displays formal pay ranges from an entry level to a top out, and the actual salaries of the employees in other agencies vary from midpoint based on the tenure of previous experience, et cetera. Okay, here's mine. I am currently, you can see on the top, the very thin line where it says Executive Director, General Manager. My actual salary is $133,900. The midpoint, according to the survey, is $158,706. By no means is this survey suggesting that I go from $133,900 to $158,000 in one foul swoop. what has to happen out of this is something has to be taken to the board with regards to moving in that general direction. There's a list of the agencies that were contacted or who provided information, the MDA QMD, Antelope Valley. Incidentally, VVTA has been compared to Antelope Valley since before I got here. I've always heard that they're just across the 138 from us, and with the exception of some commuter service that they run into downtown LA, they're very similar to us. We have Western Contra Costa Times, PERMA, which is the Public Entity Risk Management Authority, which Victorville belongs to, the city of Hesperia belongs to, and VVTA also belongs to it. I am on their board and executive committee. We were able to get their information. Yolo County, and of course Sunline didn't provide anything. You can see below that there are other agencies that were tapped into to create the numbers by the consultant. There are the other jobs. Here are the other jobs. I'll just run through them quickly. You can take a look at them, or I can provide them to you later on. In some cases, there was limited data, so I think the consultant went to the private sector to get some information. Clerk of the board, administrative services. These were some of the recommendations that came out of it. Looking at the way to ability to recruit and retain quality staff based on geography, staff performance, staffing levels, budget, customer service level expectations. It did make a recommendation that we should adopt formal pay ranges to ensure all positions are placed in a pay range. That is going to the board in this month to see if they'll adopt pay ranges that were recommended. Recommended compensation plan. They've been proposed for each job classification. Some employees actually fall below the minimum from the job classifications, and there would have to be some adjustment this year for that. You'll see later, the actual number would be about $40,000 total to bring them up to the minimum, and we know we can do that without any impact to the budget, without any impact to LTF. We have 5307 funds that we can use for administration that will offset that cost. This is how it was put together, the pay range illustration. You can see the midpoint was about 5 to 7 years experience. The minimum was at 85% of the midpoint and the maximum at 115%. Here are the minimums and maximums for all of the positions. If you want to take a quick look at that, those are for all the positions that VVTA has, including a part-time schedule filler. Summary of benefits. Basically, it says that VVTA is on par with the benefits from the other transit agencies. And when I was asked to put the plan together for taking VVTA as a public agency, what I did is I collected the benefits plans from all of the 5 jurisdictions, and I basically put them all together and took something that was right in the middle of all of them, and that's how we came up with our compensation plan. Next, this was not asked, but this is very important to Victorville. In 2009, WILC brought up and had passed SB 716, and SB 716 changes the allowable use of TDA LTF funds. It impacts counties over 500,000 population as of the 2000 census. And what it does is it eliminates the use of LTF for streets and roads as of July 1st, 2014. Every penny has to go to transit. It was amended in 2010 to allow street and road money for cities under 100,000 population in those counties. San Bernardino, as of 2000, was well over 500,000, and Victorville is the only city in our service area that is over 100,000. So Victorville's LTF funds are at risk. The original language from 1970 is here. I won't read it to you because it is legislative speak, but basically it states that counties over 500K population, based on 1970 population, had to use all of their LTF for streets and roads. San Bernardino County certainly was under 500,000 in 1970, but not now. However, it's quiet. There's one line in there that says, but excluding counties with more than 4,500 miles of maintained county roads as of 1970. SB 716 basically does not change that. It's silent on it. So basically, I checked with the SB Traffic Division, and May 4th, 1970, the Board of Supervisors certified that San Bernardino had 4,884,000 miles, which is over the 4,500 miles. So therefore, San Bernardino County and all the cities therein, regardless of population, should be exempt from SB 716 requirements to expend all of their LTF on transit. Now, that's me. I am not Andre. I am not a lawyer, so I think that the city really needs to get their attorney to take a look at this and move on this before something happens and your LTF is in jeopardy. So I hope I'm right. I think I'm right, but I think it's worthwhile to look into. Finally, I think I'd like to say that over the past 14 years, VVTA staff has fought hard to protect a fair share of LTF for streets and roads because we know our buses use these roads and contribute to the wear and tear on these roads. And thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Kevin Keynes, the General Manager of the Victor Valley Transit Authority. A lot of information. I have more questions that I'm going to attempt to ask at this point, but I am going to refer a lot of questions to the staff because I'm very curious about some things. My understanding is this was placed on the agenda regarding the Sunday service. Once more, Sunday service wouldn't go into effect until 2014?
14, probably not even until January or February of 2014.
Before I go any further, questions from council members?
Well, I definitely appreciate the clarification. Had we had the clarification, I could have spared you tonight's visit.
I apologize.
Because that's what the whole point of this was, is I was understanding that our LTF was at risk and that we were being asked to divert it, and I didn't know if we had it reserved for roads. So I was concerned about that, so I apologize for, having you come here tonight to talk about this, but it is good news. I hope you're right that we get to keep our LTF funds. That would be great. And then just because, Ryan, you sit on Sandbag, if you could do whatever you can on there to get them to pay for that NTC route, because even though it's not local and it goes to Barstow, it's still taking employees from Victorville to Barstow, and that road is extremely dangerous, and I would hate to have to cancel that service, but not at the, we will at the expense of, having to fund it ourselves. So if Sandbag could keep true to their word, and we actually made this decision because Sandbag promised it, and then they reneged. So if they could just hold true to that, we can keep this service going. And it just doesn't affect us. It's the rest of the cities involved. So we all have to agree. And as far as the Sunday service, I also understand now that we don't even have a say on whether we're going to do Sunday service, because Sandbag could come back and say to us, you have extra money left over. You're going to meet this unmet need. So it doesn't even matter what we have to say. So I for one am glad that we're going to have Sunday service, but I was also, I had the dilemma of, is it Sunday service more important than fixing our roads? But now it's more clear to me that we don't even have an option at that point.
It will be a finding, but they can't tell us how to initiate it, and that's why we were going to initiate a very small program at first to make sure that there's really an appetite for Sunday service.
And there was another thing that I wanted to ask you, and I think you kind of blew through it. But I remember in our COA meeting that you mentioned that there's a senior home here in Victorville that we're going to discontinue service to.
No, it's not the senior home. The changes on Route 51 would mean that service to the senior center, which doesn't have much ridership, it's the senior center on Hesperia Road that would not have a bus stop at it anymore.
That was what was concerning to me, and I wanted the city to if
there's one it would be about 6 blocks away.
I think the seniors need to be serviced, and I hate for them to be out on the street or not getting to an activity. So I wanted that brought up to the council as well. If that's really, really important, is there anything we can do to make that happen?
Well, the boarding and the lightings are very low. The people get on and off at that stop. That's one of the reasons they decided that it was expendable, so to speak.
Do you have a annual needs hearing in regard?
Yes, it's required. If all of the TDA funds aren't spent on transit, an annual unmet needs hearing has to be held, yeah.
Okay.
It's not held, excuse me, Jim, it's not held in Ontario or places where they have 100%. They don't need to have an unmet needs because 100% goes to transit.
When will you hold that? Is it
It was
conjunction
held in
with the budget?
September.
In September?
Yeah, so the findings are just coming out now.
Now, if you start or stop any particular services, do you just do it based upon the study, or are there notices, lead times, another hearing?
Oh, there'll be notices and lead time, certainly.
Okay.
This hasn't even been finalized. It has to be go out to the public and receive additional public input.
Sometimes we find citizens who want a service but don't always use it. If they're afraid, if they know they may lose it, they begin using it. So I'm sure the word will get out, and we'll see what happens. Maybe you'll have better users.
Let's hope so. If we have to, we'll make changes. Yes.
A couple things. First of all, thank you for your presentation, and thank you for doing it quickly. I know you planned on a lot more time, but I do appreciate all the information that's in here. To some of the comments you made with respect to Sandbag and some of the concerns of Councilmember Valles, if you and I could meet on those issues, because although they may have come to us or they may not have, I'm not aware of exactly what you're talking about with respect to Sandbag just telling you no.
It was done administratively.
Okay, that's what was my what I figured. With respect to going out to Fort Irwin, I think it would be good if I and you and Supervisor Levengood met to discuss that issue. Perhaps we can figure out a way to come to some sort of common ground, especially in light of the fact that, yes, that was a priority of our former supervisor, bought off on by the Sandbag Board of Directors. Why something would change, I don't know. And then to the LTF, Andre, I think it's appropriate that you do give this council an opinion with respect to that as to what Mr. Kane is sharing with us, and are we exempt from that, or are we going to have to comply with it? Because that could be a huge number when it comes to our roads and ultimately the money we could spend on them. But I'm in complete agreement that all these things need to be looked at. Although I appreciate the compensation study, I don't think it's necessary for this council. We do have our representative on your board, and she's fully capable of making those decisions.
All right, any other questions from council members? If not, Kevin, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
I'm sure
and
you're going to
attention.
hear from us on some of these issues that raise a concern. And I know that some military bases, I don't know current, used to have transportation funds also, and they can mix those with local transportation funds and help offset the cost.
The base had run its own service since the 1980s, and they announced that they were canceling it because of funding. And that's how we came into the picture.
Are you in a recession? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Agenda item, there's no action beyond what we've taken. Agenda item number 10, the recommendation is the City Council award $77,000 to Selectron Technologies. If there's no questions.
I had a question.
Questions?
Will this reduce personnel costs?
Ultimately, it should reduce personnel costs. We're not sure exactly how much just yet. Kind of have to get it implemented and see. It'll do it in several ways. This will enhance the computer system that when a water customer or a trash customer calls in, their information will pop up on the CSR's screen automatically. They would just need to confirm it. It'll save time there. But then even more importantly, something we're pretty excited about is that right now, if let's say a customer isn't getting their mail for whatever reason, or is out of town for whatever reason, and is potentially facing a water shutoff, they get a door hanger hung on their door. If they're out of town, they are probably going to miss that door hanger just like they missed their mail. The system will have the ability to call the customer 2 days before their water is shut off and offer them the option to go ahead and pay their bill and avoid the shutoff altogether. That should eliminate, in other cities, it's eliminated over half of the actual shutoffs that occur. We're hopeful that we can enjoy something similar to that. It would cut down the need for staff turning off water, turning water back on, as well as you can imagine, someone who's got their water shut off isn't the most cordial customer that we have come into City Hall.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that this is going to, because I know a lot of complaints that I get about the water department is that the wait time, waiting for a person to come on, will that reduce?
We have reduced it considerably. We hired some additional temporary staff in October and November to take care of that, but this should also assist with that as well, yes. And it'll also give customers an option if they simply want to pay their bill. They'll be able to do that all over the phone. If they want to talk to a customer service representative, certainly they'll have that option.
Okay, that was
But
going to be my
if
next
they just want to
question.
push a few buttons, pay their bill, it'll be very easy
But
to
they
do.
can have an option of getting a live person.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
No further question?
Motion by Councilmember Valles, second by Mayor Pro Tem McEachran. Councilmember.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries with Councilmember Kennedy absent.
Items 11, 12, and 13, we're going to deal with at a later time. Item 14, written communications. Appointment of 2 council members to serve on the Housing and Community Development HCD Grant Review Committee. Before we take an action on this, I spoke briefly with our city manager. The staff is requesting that 2 council members be appointed to serve with the staff on the review committee prior to council award of the CBDG grants, community development block grants, and the Home Investment Partnership Act, or the home funds. I have no objections. I think it should be done. I would like to, though, don't lose track of the fact that these are 2 different programs, and it may be after some consideration you want 2 different council members to serve on the home investment than serves on the CDBG. We'll discuss it later. Right now, I see no objections to this. No questions from the council? Who would you like to see? I think someone was requesting to.
Mr. Mayor, if I recall from the public hearing last month, Mayor Pro Tem McEachran and Councilmember Kennedy both had to recuse themselves for different reasons. So assuming those reasons still exist, it would be probably inappropriate for either of them to serve on the review committee. Narrowing it down.
I'm sure for both Councilmember Kennedy and myself, those reasons still exist. So I can be a part of appointing the members to the committee, but I can't be a part of the decision-making process, and I doubt that Councilmember Kennedy can as well. So in light of that, if I might suggest that perhaps the 2 newest members of our city council serve on that committee, if they so.
I think Jim has a lot on his plate.
Well, then, would you? Are you volunteering?
I certainly can do it. I just would like to do it in the evening if I could, because otherwise I have to take vacation time. Is that possible to do?
Yeah, we can schedule it around your schedules.
The earliest would be 4:30. I could be here.
Yeah, we've already accepted the applications. We're actually going through the screening process right now. Sounds like we're looking at around January 31st to actually start having some of those meetings. But the staff prepares a binder and summarizes them fairly well. They weed through a lot of the applications to make sure that you're only getting the most eligible. And then, of course, we're really trying to make your decision-making process simplified by, of course, making sure the goals and objectives of the program are clear to you, and then you can decide based upon your goals as a policymaker for this council what fits.
What would it be acceptable?
Yeah, that would be fine with me. I mean, if you wanted to do it, but you just seem
it's
like
fine.
we're really busy. But Gloria, would you like to do it with me? Okay.
Okay.
All right, then that'll be my motion.
Very good.
And can we have a second, please?
Second?
Yes. Okay. Mayor I have to get used to you being motion by Mayor Pro Tem McEachran, second by Councilmember Vyas. Motion carries with Councilmember Kennedy absent.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 15, whoops, did I jump that item? No, I didn't. Agenda item number 15, council committee reports. I do know, before we get too far afield, there are still some appointments to be made. I know I didn't make a couple of appointments. I continued them. I wasn't prepared. Keep reminding me and whomever else needs to make those so that we can I can find someone. I've been busy. I haven't even looked. We need to get those things done as soon as possible to get all the committees full. At this point in time, opportunity for the City Council to report on their activities, appointed representatives. I think we started on the right last time. We'll start on the left. Appointments to various boards and committees. Any activities, though?
Have any at this time?
Yes, I have 2 items just to share with the council. A group of local community members, nonprofits, churches, held a second homeless summit today at the First Christian Church over at SCLA. And out of that meeting, it was decided that we're going to move forward as quickly as possible to establish some emergency warming shelters. For those of you that haven't noticed, it's been a little cold around here lately. And so starting tomorrow night, we will have an emergency warming shelter at the Victorville Fairgrounds. There are various people that are going to put up money and funding for that to pay for the utility cost of heating that facility. The Red Cross is going to come in and provide cots and bedding, and the various churches are going to provide transportation from Old Town and downtown Victorville to the fairgrounds. And we'll continue that effort as long as the temperatures are 35 and below, as long as we can, and ultimately looking for a longer-term solution. But I'd like to publicly thank Nancy Jackson with Southern California Edison. I called her immediately after the meeting today, and although Edison does not provide for the warming shelters, they do provide for the cooling shelters in the summertime, so we're going to work towards that. But she's already reached out ahead of me to Southwest Gas to see what they can do to help us in providing the funding for that. So just a lot of good came out of that meeting today. I know that, Doug, we do ultimately plan to have a workshop before the council.
Yeah, we're
at some
trying to
point.
get it scheduled now. We've had some staffing shortage that would normally handle that, so we're trying to get it scheduled within the next month or so to talk about. It's kind of, there's 2 separate issues. One is what level of participation the council wants the city to have financially in some kind of a homeless shelter, more of a long-term than an emergency warming shelter. And then the second piece of that is zoning. Right now, there's not a whole lot of areas that would allow zoning for a homeless shelter in Victorville. There's some areas, but there's not much available in those areas. So we need to have a discussion about if the council is interested in changing some zoning to allow for a homeless shelter, say in Old Town or another part of the city, perhaps.
Okay, well, as soon as we can get that scheduled, then we'll provide that information to the folks that are part of this committee and anyone else that's interested. And the only other thing I'd like to share with the council is I had the opportunity, along with our city manager, to attend the Ranchero Interchange groundbreaking last Friday. It was blistering cold, as it has been for the last several days in the last week. But, you know, it's a great day for the Victor Valley. We have 2 interchanges under construction in the high desert. I'm going to defer to our city manager, or our mayor, because he'll recall if that's ever occurred before in the history of the high desert. I doubt it has. But this is going to be quite a great thing for the entire high desert, as it will relieve traffic congestion that we experience on Bear Valley Road right now once we have these 2 interchanges open. So it was a great day for Hesperia, but even greater day for the entire high desert. So good things are happening in the high desert.
Councilmember Vyas.
I just would like to acknowledge Ryan McCachran for taking a part financially in helping provide these shelters. He's providing the electricity to heat these shelters, so I just wanted to thank you for that. It's an important need. And I would like to thank Kevin Kane for coming out and giving that report. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of work, so thank you. And that's it.
Thank you. I have no items at this time. Item number 16, discussion and possible actions regarding items for the upcoming City Council agenda.
Me first?
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. I was appointed by this council to be over the Old Town Committee, and it's been very difficult. I haven't been able to really attend any meetings because they're in the morning. And I know that, Gloria, you have been attending.
I have.
And I was wondering if we could transfer or agendize transferring that appointment over to Gloria, since she's been attending them anyways. I think she would be a better representative for the city of Victorville than I could be.
That's acceptable to you?
Not that I will be better than Angela, but I do accept.
You've much more years here in the city of Victorville, in Old Town too.
Well, it
Yeah.
means a lot to me.
Yeah.
Old Town.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll put that on the next agenda, Madam City Clerk. And
And then I also wanted to, if we could get a report from the city manager on the library situation and what could be done there, especially about the parking structure, maybe even lighting it or moving it, or where are we at with that? And if we could get the county involved in somehow and figure out.
County actually isn't involved in our library. In 2007, I believe it was, the city took on the library as an agency.
Can we give it back?
Probably not, but that's something
I noticed that the
uh,
county libraries are beautiful.
Yeah, there was a desire at the time to build a much larger library actually in the Civic Center and have that be more of a regional library. That is still on the planning long-term horizon, but we'll have to have a tremendous increase in development in order for the development impact fees to come in to pay for such an expansion. So that's something that Mayor Cox has talked to me a little bit about. Potentially talking to the library about either getting, or to the county about either getting the county more involved with the library, or potentially, as you suggested, give it back to the county.
Thank you.
And then one other thing. I am concerned too, just as Vicky Mack, regarding the pedestrians accidents here in Victorville. And I would like maybe if we can agendize possibly our PR department to get involved in this campaign in some way. To help bring recognition and safety and awareness for pedestrian.
Sure.
Since I'm sorry, are you finished?
I'm finished.
I'm glad you brought the item up on the pedestrians. I was going to talk to our new police chief, our Captain Yoder, because I notice more and more people are walking in the streets almost in defiance of traffic. I have mentioned that to several people who also tell me they are running into the same thing. There are sidewalks. They're not walking on the sidewalk. They're walking in the street. They refuse to move. And you have to come to a halt or go by slowly or you're going to hit somebody. What gives? No need to go into it now, but I notice it more and more and more. And what's especially scary is I'm noticing people walking in the streets at night with dark clothing. It defies logic, but it's happening, and I'm not sure why. So I'd like to have a discussion sometime in regard to that. I know you're busy, very busy with crime and other things, but this is kind of a trend. I don't know if it's like pulling your jeans down around your knees trying to walk, but it seems to be the latest thing with people walking in the street. And so, it's scary. It really is. I'm paying more and more attention because I see people doing it. So anyway, Mr. McCachran.
I have nothing.
That does it with that item. Item 17, staff presentation by any reports by the staff, matters to wish to report on.
I don't know if there's been a whole lot of publicity about this yet, but the Panera Bread store will be opening they have a soft opening on Monday, so don't rush them too much. They're learning. Their grand opening with the ribbon cutting is Tuesday morning, and this will be the first Panera Bread with a drive-through location in the entire region. So we're proud about that. We're also proud. I want to commend all of our development staff for how quickly that store was constructed. It was amazing to watch. I thought that they had to be at least a couple of months out still, and they're ready to open up. I think we largely got out of their way and responded when they needed inspections and just got the job done, just like they did the same thing. So we're thrilled to have it opening up next week.
Interesting. Is it safer to drive and talk on a telephone or drive and eat?
Well, they put them in a bag, and you can
Don't
put
make
them in.
suggestions for our California State Legislature, please. Wow.
Can't help but wonder. Any other reports from the council members?
I'd just like to thank Captain Yoder for his service to Victorville and welcome Sam. And don't believe everything you hear about me.
We all echo those comments. We do, no, not believing, but I mean, thank you and welcome, Sam. Thank you, Captain Yoder. That concludes our agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending and being a part of this. Take care, be healthy. We'll see you in 2 weeks.